Now, just 2 years in its 5-year term, the 9th Parliament is locked in a power struggle. A storm is brewing between the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker of Parliament. As bet on whether the executive is involved simmers, observers allude to the fact that there is much more than meets the eye. On Newsnight, we unravel the underlying factors behind these power battles. Many thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsnight. Andrew, welcome to Newsnight. We'll begin with your thoughts.
Call me old man of the clan.
Well, we'll discuss that on another day. Let's discuss the power battles in the corridors at Parliament. You have the latest being the Speaker vis-a-vis versus the Deputy Speaker. But also we know that there is another underlying battle between the Speaker and the Prime Minister. Your 10 cents on this?
Yes, I think that if you look at NRM internally, it is deeply fractionalized along personal egos. So you have the Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Kadaga. She can't get along with the Deputy Speaker, Jacob Olanya. The Speaker of Parliament, Kadaga, cannot get along with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister and the President are not working very well. You have seen the Red Pepper keep reporting.
Yes, I was about to say that hasn't come out. So we will probably...
There have been some minor reports, but one of these days a big story may come out in the newspapers about the rift. And I think that this rift is symptomatic of something outside of the NRM. It is a demonstration that actually the opposition in Uganda has increasingly become weaker. You see, NRM's internal organizational coherence has always been predicated upon the strength of its opponents. Whenever its opponents have been very strong, it has tended to threaten NRM into becoming more cohesive and therefore acting as one unit. But as the opposition has become radicalized and therefore become much weaker, the submerged tensions and the divisions inside the NRM now have taken center stage. But
critics would argue and say that divisions within a party, like any other party, are actually good for the party and actually bring the party closer and makes it stronger. It depends,
Maurice. It depends. You see, if divisions inside a party are over whether to adopt a policy of the state controlling the commanding heads of the economy or whether the state should do purely privatize and let the private sector be the driver of growth, that is a healthy source of friction and division in a political party. But when the source of tension, friction in a political party is the personal egos of individual players fighting over power and privilege, then that is very destructive.
But the power game and the power in fighting has actually been in Parliament and hasn't actually flown out of Parliament to the party. And many in the party would actually say the party is almost stronger than it was even in 2011.
You see, NRM...
They just won an election, by the way.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
You see, this is why I'm telling you that the opposition in Uganda has increasingly become very, very, very weak. Why is it weak? Because it has gotten radicalized and it's appealing only to its base without trying to reach out to so many other Ugandans who are disenchanted with the government but do not see an alternative in the opposition. The NRM being almost the only bull on the scene. Look at 2010.
Yes.
NRM had the primary election that was so bad. Many of its own members were humiliated, cheated, and defeated in the primaries in unfair ways. Normally, you would have expected their frustrations to force them to go to the opposition.
Yes.
All of them remained inside NRM, and when they decided to run, they did not run on a UPC, DP, or FDC ticket. They decided to run as independents, but allied to NRM. That shows you how strong the NRM has become now. Because of that strength, almost a kind of monopoly position, that has created room for quarrels to emerge within the party. But these quarrels are not based on any form of policy division, they are based on personal egos.
Yes, but many would argue, yes. Okay, you can...
The second thing about NRM is, over time, NRM lacks an ideological anchor. You cannot say that the different people within NRM are brought together around a great idea, whether to advance the cause of democracy, whether to advance the cause of clean and honest government, whether to advance the cause of East African integration. No. NRM is a collection of powerful individual elites within Uganda whose primary objective is to access power and privilege and use power and privilege to accumulate material resources.
But many
have
actually,
status.
Yes, but many would say the NRM is actually broke, an extremely broke party that only relies on the fact that its members are in government.
Exactly. The NRM organizationally does not have funds except when the president is able to mobilize for it, either funds from the state or funds from his external friends and the private sector. But the advantage NRM has, it is in control of the state. Because they control the state, if you're a member of NRM, you can be one of the 300 RDCs that we have and deputy RDCs. You can be one of the 77 ministers, one of the 117 presidential advisors. You can also be one of the hundreds and hundreds
I get the gist of where you're going. Yes, I get the gist of where you're going. Let's discuss something.
On the boards of semi-autonomous government bodies.
Yes, let's discuss something that comes up in these power battles between the Speaker and the Prime Minister. There is something everyone talks about called the queue. I don't know if you actually believe in this queue, the queue for power, the queue for the presidency.
Well, I think...
Is there something like that?
Yes, you see, President Yoweri Museveni can, every single day that passes, the number of days he can stay in office reduce. Because either he can be defeated in an election or he can die. So, he does not have an unlimited period of time within which he can be in power. That means that he has stayed longer in power. Now it's coming to 30 years. Many people are positioning themselves for succession. Among them, you can see Kadaga. Among them, you can see Tinyefuza. Among them, you can see Amama Mbabazi. Those are the contenders for the throne. But I personally think that if President Museveni was able to identify early in time a particular person, say, this is my successor, it will attract a lot of envy and therefore focus on that person. He will be attacked, criticized. They will look for every mistake in order to bring him down so that the others who are not the selected successors can have a chance. But yes, in the event, and God forbid, President Museveni dropped dead today, if you ask me, what would happen in Uganda? Yes. I personally believe that there would have to be a primary in the NRM. The constitution says the vice president takes over for 6 months and organizes an election. Yes. There would be a primary in the NRM, and in that primary, you would have 3 candidates: Kadaga, Amama Mbabazi, and Janet Museveni. My own calculation is that Mrs. Janet Museveni has a higher chance of defeating Kadaga and Amama. Why? Because the powerful forces inside the NRM would initially be scared of Amama Mbabazi. They have had battles with him and they think he will settle scores with them. So their first aim would be to stop Mbabazi. In trying to stop Mbabazi, they may tend to rally around Janet because she has a brand name, the Museveni clan. So, and if she defeats Kadaga and Mbabazi in the NRM primary, she's the NRM candidate for the presidency, she will have to face Besigye in the national election. Now, I don't know whether Mbabazi would walk away and join Besigye, but whatever it is, in a battle between Besigye and Janet Museveni, I think she would defeat him. Why? Because she has an evangelical vote, she has the women's vote, she has the Museveni brand, and she will have the infrastructure of the state to help her, you know, have an unfair advantage over Besigye. So, if we talk of succession in Uganda, yes, we are likely to have a family succession as a high possibility.
You really have touched on something that we will have to continue a debate on, and that is the succession topic and many other factors. But just quickly, in a few seconds of your time, you sit and speak with the president. You're friends with the president. Let's talk about 2016.
Who said I am friends with the president? I thought you are also his friend.
It's written in several
Do you want me to reveal where you and him were together somewhere and he was singing a lot of praises?
Well, that is for another day. But let's talk about 2016. Has he talked to you, and has he actually said, I will stand? Or do you actually see any signs that he will stand in 2016?
I don't think that President Museveni has a fixed position on 2016. I personally think that most likely, 99% of the chances are he's going to run. But there's a time in 2011 after he had been defeated Besigye thoroughly, I went and stayed with him in Rwachtura, and we had a long conversation, we had a series of conversations during that time.
Clearly not private anymore, yes.
Yes, but I got the sense from a conversation with him that he was looking beyond himself. So, but then there was walk to work and things changed, and later I realized that possibly his mind has changed. So I don't think that the president has a fixed position on these things. Perhaps something can happen which convinces him that he is in such... There are 2 ways in which I think Museveni can leave power. Either he is in such a strong position that there isn't any threat whatsoever to his power, and then he's magnanimous enough to leave, or he feels that his position in the presidency is untenable, has no option but to leave. So you already those 2 extremes.
We will continue this debate, Andrew, and tomorrow when Newsnight returns, we will continue the succession talk. Andrew, just touching or just scratching the surface, and that was Newsnight.